Ladies and gentlemen, kicking off the first stop on his world tour, our new president and prophet, Russell M. Nelson! You say you want some revelation, well, here you go. It's gonna blow your freaking mind.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to the weekly Mormon News Roundup, where D-Bays and Al are going to ruminate on the great and spacious beehive. And I got to tell you, this is an excellent week for our introduction music, because we have a huge episode number 42, coming at you for the week of January 15th, 2023. And this week's episode is packed to the gills about why President Nelson's 5-year ministry is not so different from playing Scrabble. This week is all about Russell M. Nelson. And let's see, we've also got what President Russell M. Nelson's children have learned from him as a father. And I'm going to tackle a fascinating theoretical LDS leadership challenge. So welcome back, D-Bays. I hope you had a good week off last week. We sure missed you.
Well, it's great to be here. This was supposed to be your week off, but unfortunately, Colby Reddish and his wife, one of their children was sick, and unfortunately, they weren't able to be with us this time. So I know that you were supposed to be off this week, but we're grateful to have you on.
I'm glad to be here, and hopefully they can join us next time. It'll be great.
You betcha. Now, we've got an absolutely enormous week to go through here. It is really off the hook how many articles. And most of these articles here are going to be coming from the official church news sources. But if you want to connect with us, we're at MormonNewsRoundup.org, or send us an email to colove@MormonNewsRoundup.org. We'd love to hear from you. But first, before we get into things, let's how about a Mormon News joke of the week? Are you ready for this, Al?
I've been waiting for this joke for a long time. Let's go.
The bar is way too high for this one, but here you go. An LDS weasel goes into a restaurant for dinner, and the waiter says, "I've never seen someone from your church before. Would you like to start with a beer?" And the weasel responds, "No, I don't drink alcohol." So the waiter responds back, "Well, what can I get for you then?" "Well, pop," goes the weasel.
I love it.
Okay.
Okay, that one was worth the wait.
You may need to get out more, Al. If that
I do need to get out more.
Okay. Now, our first article here was published here by Sarah Jane Weaver. It's on 5 January 2023. It is Why President Nelson's 5-year ministry is not so different from playing Scrabble. And the article says, just as he worked out a formula to ensure a winning hand at Scrabble, the prophet governs his life by following divine laws and receiving blessings. So he's following, where is he getting these divine, now who's setting these divine laws, Al?
Well, supposedly it comes straight from heaven, right?
Uh-huh. And then who is codifying those laws?
That would be coming through Russell M. Nelson.
Right. Okay. So he's following divine laws that he himself has established. Is
that
correct?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, of course, he's the one who's revealing those divine laws. And so is it safe to say he's governing his life by literally following his own rules?
Yeah, this is, I guess with the Scrabble thing, it sounds kind of like playing Scrabble, but you wrote the dictionary.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good analogy.
Okay.
Basically, he's the only person on earth who gets to set his own laws, and the rest of us must follow or face the consequences. Now, I am a big Scrabble player. I play Words with Friends on my phone and also with my family occasionally. And it seems like from these articles here that Russell M. Nelson is a winner at almost everything that he tries, whether it's fishing, Scrabble, or becoming the sole vicar of Jehovah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is just, there's a lot of adulation this week, including in this article. Now, I am not an expert here, but does one have a hand in Scrabble? Is that?
It's not so much a hand. I mean, you do have a selection of tiles, right? But it's not like, I guess it could be considered a hand. I'll go with it.
Well, when I watch the Scrabble Championship, they talk about people taking a turn in Scrabble.
Yeah.
From my understanding, there's no hand in Scrabble. You know, you have a hand of poker or you have a hand of playing spades because you have a hand. It's in your hand. There's no hand in Scrabble because it's on the little ledger.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You're not holding it in your hand. You have you're right. You have the little ledger that holds your pieces.
You're holding a hand when you're playing poker and you're trying to, is my hand better than yours? That's not how it works in Scrabble. Yeah. So that's just a small thing here. But look, can you read that next section of that article that we talked about earlier?
Okay, so President Nelson confessed to knowing exactly what his wife was going to say next. Quote, "You are going to talk about Scrabble," unquote, he quipped. We all laughed, even though we knew President and Sister Nelson were not really joking.
Right. So he literally knew what was going to come next, which is confirmed by Wendy. Is this a clear example of prophetic discernment?
Um, well, if it's prophetic discernment, then there's a lot of spouses that have been married for a while that have that kind of discernment. Right?
But okay, good answer. But is this the closest that we're going to get to a prophecy from South Temple? Because
Could
he
be.
said, he said he knew what was coming next, and it did happen. This is the closest I've seen. He's had a 5-year ministry. Is this I believe this is the only real prophecy that I've seen that could actually be testable and has come to pass.
As a matter of fact, you make a good point there, because this is the first time where he has prophesied the future.
As far as I know, now listeners out there, we're on Twitter. We're at News Mormon. Let us know if we're missing something. But this is I think this could also set the record out for the smallest prophecy that has ever taken place.
True. It's at least the most mundane and unimpressive. You talk about setting the bar low, D-Base.
Okay, now what about that next clip that we talked? Can you read the next clip from the article?
Okay, so salvation becomes a rather simple formula, President Nelson said.
Right, so it's a simple formula. Follow the prophet and be blessed, or in other words, do exactly what I say, when I say, and how I say, or you're not going to be with your family in the next life, and P.S., that place might be kind of hot.
That sums it up pretty nicely. Yep.
Yeah, it does remind me of Doctrine and Covenants Section 1, which I would like to slightly modify, which is, whether by mine own voice or the voice of my servants, it is the same, said the servants.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Right? Or the old mantra of, when the prophet speaks, the debate is over. Now, he's talking about following a simple formula. Al, was Jesus a real stickler for rule following and formulas?
Not that I recall. In fact, he was all about breaking the rules. He's like, look, the law of Moses has been fulfilled. It's done. So...
Yeah, or think about Joseph Smith. Was he big on rule following?
Oh, absolutely not. Joseph Smith was all about breaking through the rules and, going a different direction. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're seeing something different than what we've seen. Our previous examples in the scriptures of Jesus and Joseph Smith, they were not formula followers. They were not rule. They seemed to bend the mold, but it seems like President Nelson is wanting to bring everybody back in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the article says also that President Nelson's leadership is much like his 95th birthday interview, nothing to do with power. Do you have a reaction to that?
Really? Because, every interaction that you have with this guy, even that, he's like, oh, I know what you're going to say next. You're going to say I have something to do about Scrabble. Like, that's a power play, right? I mean, to have a big 95th birthday interview, this guy is all about power. He's been all about power ever since he was put in 5 years ago.
Al, it's only a power play if you put it on the triple word score, though, right?
That's exactly right, yeah.
Otherwise, if you build cat and it's only on the white tiles, you don't. Yeah. That's not much of a power play.
That's
right?
Like three points, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, there's another article here that we're going to link all this into our show notes, by the way. And this was on the Church News. This was Trent Toon, 8 January 2023. What 3 of President Russell M. Nelson's children have learned from him as a father. And the subtitle is, "The way he is leading the church is exactly an example of the way we were raised," his daughter said. Now, we put together some clips from this article here. Can you read, kind of summarize what his children said about him in this article?
Yeah. Do you want me to just go rapid fire on this?
Yeah.
All right. First one. He knows everything. Calm, patient, and loving. Mm-hmm. He's disciplined. Always engaged. He's very driven, very bright, and catches on fast. He treated Mom like royalty. He noticed every little thing. He's always doing something, always engaged.
Yeah, so, these could be multiplied. This is a very, very full of praise and adulation. Let me tell you something, Al. My children wouldn't say even 10% of this about me.
I'd say always engaged, yeah.
Well, yeah, after his first wife died, he got engaged very quickly afterwards. Now,
true.
How do you feel about how Russell M. Nelson's children speak about him? What?
Yeah, that's there's not a lot of love there, is there?
Well, I don't know about that. They seem to, I don't know. They seem to, I don't know. They didn't say one bad thing about him.
No, that's true. Well, I mean, and they all know that they're towing the line, right?
Absolutely. And if they did say anything that was not totally 100% praiseworthy, do you think it would appear in the church news?
Oh, absolutely not.
No, absolutely not. So
Yeah,
it seems like
church news wouldn't put quotes in like that.
no. Seems like Russell M. Nelson is beloved by everybody who knows him. Now, he's 98 years old and shows absolutely no signs of slowing down. And notice that much of the article is written in the present tense. He's engaged, he's disciplined, he's calm, he knows everything. It's not that he was these things, it's all present tense.
Yeah.
Now, that reminds me that I can't remember a senior LDS leader who's featured in the church news whose kid said something like this. Our father, oh, by the way, it's always a father, but that's beside that. I won't go down that road. Our father was a beloved and brilliant in his prime, but he has a hard time remembering things now, and he spends most of his time in his favorite chair in the front room dozing and watching BYU TV reruns. You ever remember reading something like that?
Oh, yeah.
What?
No. Well, not about a leader of the church, I'll tell you that.
No. And Ballard, Elder Ballard is currently suffering from dementia. There's no article about him. Joseph Worthland, President Benson, President Monson, all of these folks had serious mental decline. But we only hear that this particular narrative of he's brilliant, he's engaged, he's energetic, he's not slowing down a bit.
Yeah, they would say that about all of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if any of them that is not the case, then we are not told about that.
Yeah,
we weren't told.
It seems like there's a very political message there, right?
Yeah, we weren't told about the how bad President Monson's dementia was. We only really found about that later. Yeah. So it's really not just about how the prophet is treated in print. It's also about how he's referenced in the meetings, especially General Conference. Now, we covered this a few months ago. Do you remember there's the General Conference corpus, where you do the keyword searches for different terms in General Conference? And that one goes way back. And do you remember we covered President Nelson being mentioned in General Conference? And do you remember that story a few months ago? What was the deal with that?
It seemed like the consensus was that there was a lot of sucking up going on.
This only is a keyword search, so it can't tell if it's sucking up or not. It can only tell you about the mentions of the prophet while he's alive.
Yeah, it doesn't. You'd have to have context in order to make a statement that it was sucking up.
Yes, that is correct. But as far as how often he is mentioned when compared to his predecessors,
it was off the charts.
He's mentioned, like for President Hunter while he was alive, he's mentioned at least 5 times as much as Hunter. He's mentioned at least 3 times as much as President Benson. He's mentioned about 2.5 times more than President Mons. He is mentioned more than any of his other predecessors. And why do you suppose that is, Al?
I'm guessing that this has to do with a directive that came from Salt Lake City, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, it's kind of a mystery. I don't know why it is the case, why we are seeing so many articles, why we are seeing so many mentions, but we're going to get into that this week. Well, there's a lot more that we want to talk about this. Now, if we go back to the article, can you read that next section for us, Al?
Yeah. Salvation becomes a rather simple formula, President Nelson said.
Now, this apparently God is an incredibly transactional person, because it's all very formulaic. 2 + 2 is 4. Do this and you get a blessing. Don't do this and you don't get a blessing. Because what's the first law of heaven, Al?
Obedience.
Exactly. Not faith, not good works, not being kind. It's about obeying. And it kind of reminds me of Doctrine and Covenants, section 130. When we obtain any blessing from God, it is by obedience to the law upon which it is predicated. That's right. It kind of seems to me that the plan of salvation, and really apparently the entire construct of the universe, is really based entirely upon simple formulaic works, the so-called gospel of works.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there room for divine grace in Russell M. Nelson's spiritual view, or is it completely formulaic? One obeys God's commandments and gets blessed, and breaks them and gets damned. Is there any room for grace or mercy or anything like that if it is all based on a formula?
I don't see how there can be room for grace. I think that the LDS view of grace is that, well, after you have done everything that you possibly can do, then the grace is that you'll be forgiven for everything that you got wrong. And that's not grace.
Yeah, that's what it says in the Book of Mormon and Moroni, I believe that it is. I believe so. Now, another section of the article, Al, there was another highlighted section regarding how President Nelson has given us the keys to understanding the secrets of the universe, which really, hey, I want to know the secret of the universe. Can you read that section?
Yeah. President Nelson had shared the secret for understanding the universe and the physical and spiritual laws that govern it.
Okay, time out, Al. When did
Yeah.
Russell M. Nelson share a secret for understanding the physical laws that govern the universe? Physical.
I don't recall ever hearing him talk about the physical laws that govern the universe.
Yeah, I know. What am I missing here? I admit that I
Nothing
have
about gravity, nothing about physical motions or perpetual motion and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No special relativity, no string theory, no grand unification theory, no. I don't remember him talking about Newton. When it comes to the physical laws of the universe, really Newton is king. As far, unless we're in the quantum realm, by the way, I just don't know what I'm missing. Now, has he published these secrets to understanding these physical laws in peer-reviewed journals? Or is it just in the Maxwell Institute and the Interpreter magazine? Or maybe it's in the Friend magazine? I don't always read the Friend magazine now.
That's true. It could have been in an obscure article from the Friend back in 2019.
I know. I've heard that maybe you don't ever miss an episode, so I'm really not sure. But I just don't remember him talking about the secrets for understanding the physical laws of the universe. Now, I do. If you go to Deseret Book, Al, you will see many of his books. And what are they typically on?
They're typically on obedience, and they're typically on the importance of exactness and discipline and things like that, right?
Usually spiritual subjects, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do hope that he is getting a handsome royalty check from those ghostwritten books, though, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to go somewhere.
Exactly.
And as we're going to cover later, if it's going into Ensign Peak, that's a bad idea at the moment. We're going to cover that a little bit later. Yeah. Now, there are some scientific areas in which Russell M. Nelson has opined. First of all, he's denied evolution. Dogs have always been dogs. Monkeys have always been monkeys. And in the 2012 General Conference address, he referenced the so-called Conklin print shop thought experiment, which says that if the bomb blows up a print shop, what's the odds that it reassembles into a dictionary? And the idea is to mock the idea of evolution. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's also a young earth creationist. He's espoused literal Adam and Eve, literal flood. Mm-hmm. He's talked about Noah. He did that in the Young Adult Devotional last year, which was his most important address, in my opinion, from last year, which we covered very thoroughly on this podcast, didn't we, Al?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he's also talked about ancient biblical patriarchs living to be hundreds of years old, no death before the fall. Now, here's my question for you, Al. Do these scientific areas in which he has actually weighed in on, do they have anything in common, or is it just random?
The one thing that they seem to have in common is that they have all been disproven, and these were big thoughts and theories from times gone by, from the 50s when he would have been in school, right?
Right. Yeah. So basically, all of these areas that he has talked about with the physical laws that govern our planet and science, everything, he has basically aligned himself with a scientific minority, the overwhelming scientific minority, right?
Yeah. Very much. Like I said, when it comes to science, it's constantly updating. So yeah, these were thoughts that were being tossed around when he was in college, but now science has gone a very different direction.
Yeah, in fact, he's also, when he dedicated the Eyring Science Center at BYU a couple of years ago, he said that there's no conflict between science and religion, which for me is a real head scratcher, unless you do the following. If there ever is a conflict between science and religion, there's no conflict if you do what?
Disregard science.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No problem. Absolutely no problem. Now, there is, though, I'm going to give him credit, though, because there is one area that he's weighed in with regards to science in which he's in the majority, and that's the efficacy of vaccinations, specifically encouraging members to get the COVID vaccine, wear a mask. He had that tweeted out a picture of himself getting the vaccine.
Yeah, and I find that interesting because that did strike a lot of controversy, especially amongst the far right-wing members of the church.
You bet it did. Now, that's my question, Al. Why is he good on science of vaccines and mask wearing, but seemingly so bad on the other areas of science? What is the difference?
I guess the smallpox vaccine was invented in the early 1900s, or it was before vaccines have been around longer than modern science. You
very well could be right. Yeah, vaccines have been around a long time. I kind of look at it a little bit differently, though. I think that there's an irony here because the majority of the scientific consensus on vaccines and wearing a mask is that it's very, very safe. Mm-hmm. And that's because vaccines and masks, they're not in the scriptures, right? It's basically not even tangentially, there's really no way, shape, or form that you could pull out of all the standard works anything having to do with vaccines and masks, right?
That's right.
So that means that particular scientific area is completely silent in the scriptures. Therefore, he is free to go with the scientific consensus, whereas the scriptures talk a lot about floods and, no death before the fall and how old the earth is and things like that. And he can't go against the scriptures in those particular areas.
That's right.
Right. So as long as the scriptures are totally silent, he's good on that. So I just think that that's a little bit of an irony. But back to the article. That was a small digression. Can you read the section that where he discusses divine law?
Divine law. Excuse me. Divine law is incontrovertible. President Nelson explained, everyone receives a blessing from God because they were obedient to the law that pertained to that area. Our job is to teach people about these eternal laws. They're called commandments, but they are just as true as the law of lift, the law of gravity, the law that governs the heartbeat.
Okay, what do you take away from that section, Al?
He's really muddying the water there when it comes to eternal laws, and blessings are given from these laws. I don't know what the law of lift is.
Okay, that's the thing. I haven't heard of the law of lift either. And
I used to go to the gym, bro, but yeah,
that's a good one. Yeah,
I wouldn't consider Russell M. Nelson to be swole.
I would say that he's in very good health for a man who's 98 years old, though.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, he's in great health.
Absolutely, without question. Yeah. Now, I hope you don't think I'm impertinent, but I went ahead and Googled the law of lift, and spoiler alert, there is no law of lift. Sorry, Al.
So I'm curious. Is he creating his own scientific laws?
Let's discuss that in a moment, because it reminds me of that famous scripture in James chapter 1 verse 5. If any of you lack wisdom, let him. What does it say in that verse again?
Let him ask of. Let him Google it. Right.
Oh, right. If any of you lack wisdom, let him Google it. Absolutely. Because that's what I did. Law of lift. The only thing I can guess here is that President Nelson is referencing Bernoulli's principle, which, by the way, is either a force or a principle. It's not a law. And Bernoulli's principle says that the faster an airplane moves, the more lift it has. When the force of lift is greater than the force of gravity, the airplane is able to fly. Because of thrust, the airplane is able to move forward and fly. It's not a law, it's a principle or a force.
And it's named after a guy named Bernoulli.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Right. Now, I do find a little bit of irony here with Russell M. Nelson referencing Bernoulli's principle, which is mostly applied to airplanes, when his legendary flight of death story that has caused so much controversy seems to violate that principle.
Yeah.
Because what happens if an engine cuts out in mid-flight?
Well, then the plane slows down. And as it slows down, it's losing less lift, losing lift, so it's going to go down faster.
Right. Does it go into a death spiral?
No, not death spiral, but it will coast, like it will glide.
Yeah, if you watch that Captain Sully, what's that movie with Tom Hanks, Captain Sully?
I think it's called Sully.
Yeah, Sully. If you watch that, you see what happened when both engines got hit by those birds. I don't know, it was like 10 years ago. And he landed on the Hudson River. And what happened? Did he go into a death spiral? No, he glided down into the river.
Yeah, and because that was really the only option he had. He was going to try to reroute to a different airport, but he knew he was going to be going down faster than he could approach one of those airports. So he just looked for any open space where he could put it down, and on the Hudson was where it was. Yeah,
so number one, there is no law of lift. And number two, Bernoulli's principle, it's a little bit ironic that he's referencing that since his most famous miraculous story seems to fly in the face of it. Okay, but let's go on to his second claim. He's literally on solid ground when it comes to the law of gravity, because Newton's law of universal gravitation is usually stated that as every particle attracts each other particle in the universe with a force that is proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between their centers. I did Google that, and Al, hashtag, that's a bullseye.
All right, well done.
He's got it. Now, let's come to that third one. He said three things: law of lift, the law of gravity, and the law of the heartbeat. Al?
Yeah. Didn't know there was a law governing the heartbeat.
I know, Al, I'm not a world-renowned, highly acclaimed heart surgeon, but I'm not aware of any physical law.
It's electrical jolts that get the heart to beat, right?
You know what? I that's what I would ask President Nelson, but he seems to think that it is a law, but it just really isn't. I'm not an expert on it. I really can't say.
Open heart surgeon.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing. Law of gravity, that's never been observed to be violated, at least outside of the quantum realm. But hearts,
Yeah.
they stop beating every single day.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, electromagnetism, that's a widely accepted universal law. A beating heart simply is not. Now, I know
No.
that it is wrong to criticize leaders of the church, even if the criticism is true,
Mhm.
but I just can't help myself.
Well, yeah, because hearts stop every day, all the time, and that it's not necessarily a terminal thing, because sometimes that heart will just start back up again.
Yeah.
And so if there's a law that governs the heartbeat, that law gets broken more often than the speed limit. Okay.
That's what a law is supposed to be. It's something that is unbreakable, hence that
Yeah.
term law.
Hmm.
Law of gravity, the I don't know, the law of thermodynamics. These things, there's no exceptions.
Yeah. So it seems to me that he's got a real misunderstanding of what a law is.
Exactly. So we had 3 laws, and he's 2 out of 3 of them are very confusing and highly suspect.
Yeah. And
That's-
definitely not laws.
Exactly. Now, a real quick shout out to my other YouTube channel, which is called Mormon Movie Reviews. The church released a 1962 film called The Search for Truth, which aims to show how science and Mormonism are completely compatible, which I did a 2-hour review on. And spoiler alert, the film does nothing to harmonize these two very antagonistic bedfellows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they sure tried, though.
Yeah, they tried. Now, that was under David O. McKay's leadership. But let's get back to the article. Now, this article, it seems to argue that Russell M. Nelson is not only a great faith leader, but a great scientist as well. But before we examine that claim out, are you familiar with any great Mormon scientists? Do any come to mind?
The only one that comes to mind is Henry B. Eyringstad, and I can't remember his name.
His name is also Henry Eyring. It's
okay.
Yeah, Henry Eyring, the member of the first presidency, is actually Henry Eyring Jr.
Okay.
So his dad was a famous chemist who was the dean of the school of in the University of Utah. And just a real quick tangent here. Henry Eyring's father, which is Henry Eyring, the great chemist, he had a brother named Hardin, and Hardin and my father owned a boat together. That boat was called Big Damage.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'm tight with the Eyrings, Al.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
So that's what I'm wondering why I haven't received my general authority call up yet, because
That's right.
I've got connections. Oh, okay. But now a couple of other LDS scientists who come to mind would be Harvey Fletcher. He was a great physicist, and also Philo T. Farnsworth. What was he famous for?
He invented the television. He was the Idaho farm boy that, came up with the television.
Yeah, but if he had known that people could watch R-rated movies, he probably wouldn't have done it, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like inventing the internet, realizing that it was going to be used for porn, but it was really invented for genealogy work, right?
Absolutely. Now, there are a lot of great Mormon scientists who have, none of those individuals achieved high ordained office, but there have been some Mormon scientists who did. Do any of those come to mind?
I'm thinking, let's see, like Orson Pratt was a very studied mind.
Yeah, mathematician. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and James Talmage, what was he famous for?
Yeah, James Talmage. He wrote Jesus the Christ.
Mm-hmm.
He was also a chemist and an apostle of the church.
Yeah, and also John A. Widstow, there's a building named after him at BYU. He was an apostle. He got a PhD from Harvard. He was an agriculturalist. So there's been lots of esteemed. All of these individuals are very esteemed in their fields.
True.
Now, Russell M. Nelson is the only person who could be considered to be a scientist who has achieved a high church position since the death of Apostle Joseph F. Merrill in 1952, who, by the way, was an engineer. Mm-hmm. And there was a gap from when Merrill died in 1952 and Russell M. Nelson took over in 1984. We had a 32-year gap where there was no one who could even be remotely considered to be a scientist. I do have one reason that I think that is the case, and that's an individual named Joseph Fielding Smith was right in the middle of that time frame.
That would make sense.
Because how was Joseph Fielding Smith when it comes to science?
Oh, Joseph Fielding Smith. He was the guy who famously quoted when we were headed into the Apollo missions. He said, "Oh no, the man will never leave the Earth because the Earth is the sphere of our realm, and we won't be able to leave it."
That's correct. Yeah. So, and also he said, if evolution is true, the church is false. He made it that plain. So that's what he was in the middle of that time frame. So since he was a president of the Quorum of 12, very influential, he was not going to call any scientist in between the 50s and when we had to wait for him to die before we could get any apostle who could be considered a scientist, right?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, and this is where I'm going back to the article. Russell M. Nelson, he does not seem to know the difference between a scientific law, which is gravity, a scientific principle or force, which is Bernoulli's principle, and what he calls the so-called the so-called law of the heartbeat, which is basically a physiological bodily function.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I'm wondering here, despite all of what we've been discussing, the Church News article incongruously claims that Russell M. Nelson has shared the secret for understanding the universe and the physical and spiritual laws that govern it. And remember, just to sum up, many of Russell M. Nelson's scientific views place him firmly in the minority of his learned peers. So this is the question I have for you, Al. When you consider this article's muddled scientific claims and take into account Russell M. Nelson's previously highly questionable scientific opinions, including the 3 laws that we covered here today, does the 17th president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints belong at the same table as all of these other esteemed LDS scientists or non-LDS scientists in general? So in other words, Al, is Russell M. Nelson, is he actually a good scientist?
Just from this episode, I'd say no.
It's hard for me to come to any other conclusion when all his statements are just, they're so backward, they're so bizarre.
Yeah, because it seems like he's really trying to redefine what words mean, and that's really odd coming from someone who's so hung up on the definitions of words.
Yeah. Let's just go back to the article because I want to tackle something else, and this is a big article. It's a really good article, and it's about that section on divine law. Can you read that section on divine law?
Okay, divine law is incontrovertible, President Nelson explained. Everyone receives a blessing from God because they were obedient to the law that pertained to that area. Our job is to teach people about these eternal laws. They're called commandments. Okay,
so let me ask you this, Al. Are there examples of people breaking commandments, especially in the scriptures, that were blessed anyway? Because he said it was incontrovertible. But has it ever been controverted? I don't know if that's a word, but...
in the Book of Mormon, all throughout the Book of Mormon, the laws or commandments are broken all the time.
But that people have to be blessed anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, start right off the bat, the Lord commands Nephi to break the law that says thou shalt not kill, or the commandment that says thou shalt not kill, by murdering Laban.
Good point.
Yeah, and so, it happens all throughout the Book of Mormon where, it's okay to break these commandments as long as the Lord tells you to.
Right. Think about also in the Book of Mormon, Alban the Younger, what was he doing before he received a vision of the angel?
He was persecuting the church.
Yeah, but he was blessed anyway. Also, Paul in the New Testament, he received a vision, and was he following divine law?
No. I mean, he was persecuting the church as well.
Exactly. So also we have David in the Bible. He wasn't removed from his throne despite murder and adultery. And even in our dispensation in the 1820s, 1830s, Joseph Smith, he deceived his neighbors and took their money by claiming to be able to find hidden buried treasures that he never found with his rock in the hat. Nevertheless, and very ironically, God led him to find a miraculous, one-of-a-kind gold Bible and raised him up to be his only spokesperson in nearly 2 millennia.
Yeah, so I guess there's another law here that is getting glossed over or ignored, and that's the law of repentance, right?
I guess so. I'm not sure. That's why I'm confused. And also speaking about Joseph Smith, he broke the commandments outlined in Doctrine and Covenants 132.
That's right.
By marrying non-virgins and committing polyandry, but was he cut off or was he punished?
That has been the source of a lot of debate at the time, but now, according to the LDS Church that is currently headed by Russell M. Nelson, no, that didn't disqualify him at all.
And speaking of a DNC 132, let me give you one more example. Emma was commanded to accept Joseph Smith's wives, or she was personally told that she would be destroyed. But she lived until 1877. It doesn't seem like she was destroyed to me.
No, she took over, with Sidney Rigdon and her own sons, formed the community, what's now the Community of Christ.
Yeah, so it seems like there's loads of examples of people who were breaking commandments that were blessed anyway. We could this list could be much longer. But what I want to know is, are there people, on the other hand, who actually kept God's commandments but were not blessed as promised? And let me start this off and see if you have any that you can add to it. First of all, we have the 2-day global day of fasting and prayer that was back in April of 2020 that was supposed to turn back the COVID virus. And it reminds me of Doctrine and Covenants, section 82, which should have been applied, which says, I, the Lord, am bound when you do what I say, but when you do not what I say, ye have no promise. But the fast appears to have not had any effect whatsoever, and it has not been mentioned in the church news or general conference since.
Yeah.
Can you think of any other examples of people who kept God's commandments, but were not blessed as promised?
Well, I was just thinking back to like in the Book of Mormon, where the Lamanites were burning and destroying the women and children. And Amalekite turns to Alma and says, well, let us stretch forth our hands and use the power that we have to stop this. And he says, no, those women and children, they hadn't done anything.
Yeah, they were believers. I believe it was Amulek.
That's right, Amulek. It's been a while since I've read it.
They were believers, but they were burned alive. Didn't seem like they were blessed. If you also think about Jane Manning, she was a black member of the church in the early church, and she was sealed to Joseph Smith as a servant eternally.
Yeah. So she gets to be an eternal slave.
That doesn't seem like a blessing to me, and she was a very faithful woman.
No, I ask anybody who's in slavery if it's a blessing to be a slave forever. I mean, not only are you stuck in this world in your situation, but the next world too. Wow, what a middle finger.
Doesn't seem like a blessing to me. Now, here's a couple of others. Persons of African descent prior to 1978, they could be as righteous as they wanted to, but they're not going to the temple. They're not getting the priesthood. Innocent children of gay parents from 2015 to 2019 during the policy of exclusion. They were righteous, but no, you couldn't get a name. You couldn't be baptized. Innocent firstborn children in Egypt during the Passover massacre. They were righteous. They weren't blessed. Innocent children that were killed by the flood, Noah's flood. Innocent children killed in 3 Nephi chapter 9. Lamanites whose skin does not turn white as promised in the Book of Mormon, even after a lifetime of righteousness. And also Job in the Bible. Was he righteous?
Oh, yeah. And he got in fact, that's kind of the whole theme of the Book of Job is that, I'm going to show you how righteous this guy is. He's going to be righteous even when good things don't happen. So the whole book is about bad things happening to a righteous guy who's keeping the commandments.
So far from divine blessings being dispensed in accordance with precise, well-established scriptural formulas and easily understandable divine laws, it all just seems like one big crapshoot.
Yeah, depending on if the Lord's trying to make a point with Satan, right?
Yeah. And now, is there any? Do you have any closing thoughts on either of these first two articles, Al?
Not really, but it's certainly been a ride.
Yeah. Now, there's a third article here that I want to get into, which was published on 7 January 2023. And this was published in the Church News. And it says, a look at the President Russell M. Nelson's 5-year prophetic ministry and leadership, revelation, and invitations from the 17th prophet and president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, set apart January 14th, 2028. So this is a third Church News article in the same week, lauding his personality, vision, mission, influence. And not only are these published in the Church News, then they are also repeated and published in the Deseret News and also in KSL. Because I guess in the mouth of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 witnesses can every word be established.
The church trifecta.
Yeah. What's amusing and amazing to me is that none of these articles mention what most people in and out of the church believe that President Nelson is most known for. And what's that?
Disavowing the word Mormon.
Yeah. None of them mention it.
It's a derogatory term now, right? Well, I guess is he the one that said it was a derogatory term? Or is this just, it seems like the members have come up with that. As like, we don't use it because it was a derogatory term used against early members of the church. That's not true at all.
Yeah, if you compare it to what Gordon B. Hinckley said about people, he said specifically in General Conference, Gordon B. Hinckley, that people sometimes call us the Mormon Church. They can do far, and then he said they could do far worse. Meaning that that's not a victory for Satan. It's a simple. He said the name of the church is too long.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And then there's another article this week. Again, this was Sidney Walker, 11 January 2023, 99 announcements and changes in the church since President Nelson became prophet 5 years ago. And it's a chronological list of all of the things that President Nelson has done. And Al, this is an unprecedented level of minor tweaks.
So there's nothing ground shaking in there, right?
No, there's not. It's just randomly here. Some church-produced pageants are discontinued. Sister missionaries can wear pants. Missionary candidates will get their assignments online. The First Presidency releases a statement on temples. This is we're really celebrating the banal here.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what this is, a celebration of the banal.
Yeah, announcements are now are they the new revelations?
Seems like it, I guess. I mean, that, according to what they're saying.
Yeah, and it looks like handbook updates are the new prophecy.
Yeah.
And routine press releases, that's the new seership. And instead of Joseph Smith translating holy books of scripture, now we get minor policy adjustments.
I guess the Lord's got his priorities, right?
Yeah. Now, if you look at this 99 list, there's some items that are conspicuously absent. First of all, the 2-time church-wide COVID fast, that never happened. It's kind of like Back to the Future, erased from existence.
That's right. Shocking.
Yeah, it's never brought up again by anyone ever. Now, the Ukraine war statement, the church issued a statement on that. That doesn't make the list either for some reason.
No.
The Roe versus Wade overthrow, which most people consider to be the #1 religious news story of the year, that's not in here.
No.
Now, the church bought a $260 million Kent, Washington, huge real estate industrial complex a short time ago. That's the biggest real estate deal on the East Coast. Did that make it into this list of 99?
No.
No. And also the church is developing a $600 million Phoenix, Arizona industrial development. That's not on there. The AP sex abuse story. Remember, the church responded to this multiple times officially, and President Nelson discussed it in general conference. Did that make the list?
No.
No. Under the Banner of Heaven. Nope, not there. Joseph Smith photo. Nope, not there.
Nope.
No, a Marriage for All Act. Nope, not there. And the single biggest omission for me is that the Mormon News Roundup is completely absent.
They don't know who we are. we're kind of a big deal amongst LDS news.
I'm not too sure about that.
No.
But I'm counting them 4 church news articles this week, just in the church news, that is lauding Russell M. Nelson's ministry, leadership, and impeccable character. And this really got me thinking that perhaps maybe we need a 5th one. And I have a few potential headlines that I want to get your opinion on. And I need an honest rating here from 1 to 10, with 10 being awesome on these headlines and 1 being absolutely terrible. And please be honest, I need constructive feedback, okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to read the headline. You're going to give me 1 to 10. Let's try these headlines. Unsung corporation sole CEO still hasn't died.
I'm going to give that one a 10.
Wow. Okay. That seems to summarize every article that I've ever read about President Nelson.
Very straightforward, right?
Yeah, that gives you the message that you need as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so how about this next one? World trekking seer uplifts mostly white Utahns with his ageless, fishing-inspired platitudes.
I'm going to drop that one to an 8, mostly because, it's not uplifting.
Okay, and it's a little
or
long.
Inspired, yeah.
It's a little long. Okay, so how about this? The third one here. Most amazing man ever born holds same appointed unaccountable position for 39 years.
All right, I like that one. That one's getting a 10.
Wow, this is an easy crowd here.
Yeah.
Okay, how about this next one? Self-proclaimed prophet seeks interested disciples.
That one's, let's see. That one's pretty good. I'm going to give that one a 9. It's not it's not a 10, but I'll give it a 9.
Nice. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Now, how about this next one? Notable heart surgeon prolongs provincial dogmatic theocracy.
All right, that one's pretty good too. I give that one a 9 too.
Okay, very nice. How about this? A couple last ones. Nonagenarian Army veteran. And just real quick, sorry to back it up. A nonagenarian is somebody who's in their 90s. Okay.
Okay.
So, and he is an Army veteran, of course. He was in the Korean War. Okay, so nonagenarian Army veteran continues $5 billion esoteric castle global building spree.
I love that you use the term. That's getting a 10 for the term castle.
Yeah, okay. So he's continuing that 5. He's announced 118 temples. They're worth about 50 million a piece. So that's That's a cool $5 billion. Al, I know that's chump change to you.
Exactly. All right.
Now, okay. So how about this next one? Lovable beehive state grandpa promises salvation in exchange for a recurrent tithing donation.
That one's so straightforward. That one gets a 10.
Okay, nice. Hey, I've got 2 last ones here. Age-defying revelator loves all of God's children except members of the LGBTQ community.
That one gets a 10 too. That's pretty spot on.
Now, this last one is the toughest one. This is a stretch, so it could be tough. Millionaire revelatory geriatric disavows treasured moniker.
Oh wow, that one really. For as much as for as wordy or twisted as it is, I'm gonna have to go with a 10 on that one too.
Okay, because he got rid of the word Mormon, treasured moniker.
Yeah, he did. The treasured moniker.
Okay. And we know that Russell M. Nelson has earned at least $7 million from his church salary. That's that doesn't account his royalties from his books or anything else. So he's definitely a millionaire revelatory geriatric.
Yeah.
So which of those bonus articles titles do you want to see most from the church news this next week, Al? There's your choices. Unsung Corporation CEO, World Trekking Seer, self-proclaimed prophet, notable heart surgeon, nonagenarian, lovable beehive state.
I want to see the nonagenarian. I want to see them say that there's an esoteric castle global building spree going on.
That's very accurate.
Yeah, it is. It's for sure.
Esoteric castle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because it's secret stuff.
That's right.
Right, and it's definitely a building spree. I think, yes, I'm with you. My favorite, by the way, is millionaire revelatory geriatric disavows treasured moniker. There's something.
I love that one too. Yeah,
it's because all of the words are the same length. It's just there's something about that I like. Okay,
yeah.
So this is the thing here, Al, is that we are edging dangerously close to North Korean Kim Jong-un level of propaganda adulation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is the sort of thing that comes with a lot of gaslighting, a lot of ridiculousness. So
I'm not comparing Kim Jong-un to Russell M. Nelson morally or ethically. That's not even close. That's not even anything that you could say about that. But there's a
lot more North Koreans than there are LDS members, right?
I think there's about 10 million North Koreans as members.
Really? That's it?
Yeah. I think there's only maybe 10, maybe 15 million at the most.
So so they're actually comparable. Yeah. Oh, dang. I wish I would have thought or read that up before saying what I'd said.
I could be wrong.
Now it looks even more damning.
I could be wrong about that. But what I'm not wrong about is the fact that there's interesting parallels between the dear leader and our beloved prophet.
Yeah,
because
the number of people that they govern.
Yeah, I mean, you think about this. North Korea, and by extension Kim Jong-un, they control the state media and therefore the message. And Russell M. Nelson, he ostensibly owns Bonneville Communications, Deseret Book, KSL, the Church News, and therefore he controls the message as well because it's a corporation soul, right?
True. Yep, that's exactly what it is. And on that note, we're going to take a quick break for a couple of minutes to get a word from our sponsors. Hey there, brothers and sisters. Thanks for listening to the Mormon News Roundup. And if you are enjoying this show, please consider making a donation. Patreon makes an important contribution to helping us ruminate on the great and spacious beehive here. So thanks so much to everyone for supporting us on patreon.com. A big thank you to our sponsor, Signature Books, for supporting us here at the Mormon News Roundup. Please go over to signaturebooks.com and check out some of the latest publications that they have. Currently, they have things like Lighthouse, the Gerald and Sandra Tanner story by Ronald V. Huggins, one of the stories about the two most famous critics of Mormonism today. We've also got the story of Dr. Martha Hughes Cannon, a biography, suffragist, senator, and plural wife. That one is by Constance Lieber. And then we've also got a really good one here called DNA Mormon by Benjamin E. Park. So for all of your interest in Mormon studies and research, go over to signaturebooks.com and support our sponsor. Thank you.
Now, there's a few similarities between these two, and they could definitely be multiplied. But I'm going to read this. I pulled these out of North Korean propaganda, and then I also corresponded it with the LDS propaganda. And let's see if they're similar. So here's about Kim Jong-un. He does the Arirang mass games, which are a stunning spectacle of choreography and synchronicity.
That's right. Russell M. Nelson, he does the Conference Center General Conference, where the Mormon Tabernacle Spectacles, or BYU Provo Freedom Festival Spectaculars.
Yeah, absolutely. Kim Jong-un, he has many miraculous stories about his birth and life.
Yeah, Russell M. Nelson has a miraculous flight of death, inspiring woman with the hat story, the legend of the African bandits, and Scrabble discernment.
I like Scrabble discernment.
I like that one too.
That is very good. Now, Kim Jong Un, he has a portrait in every building.
Yeah, Russell M. Nelson does too.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. I read that Kim Jong Un is a legendary golfer. He like hits a hole in one at like in every hole.
As has been reported, Russell M. Nelson, he loves Scrabble and he's a fisherman.
Yeah. Now, Kim Jong Un, you cannot ever badmouth him in public.
No, you can't. Also, with Russell M. Nelson, do not speak evil of the Lord's anointed.
True. Kim Jong Un, he, according to North Korean propaganda, he can cure or treat AIDS, Ebola, and many cancers, heart disease, impotence, the common cold.
Russell M. Nelson was a legendary heart surgeon with divine priesthood powers, and he even healed Spencer W. Kimball, another prophet.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Kim Jong Un, he can control the weather.
That's true. Russell M. Nelson, Elders Ballard and Christopherson have recently claimed the ability to control the weather. Russell M. Nelson hinted at doing similarly in 2019 in Fiji. So
yes. Yeah. Now, how the Korean media describes Kim Jong Un, they say that his eyes reflect the strong beams of the gifted great person seeing in the majestic spirit.
Ooh. Russell M. Nelson said that he's simple, endearing, empowering, possessing the gift of discernment, and energetic.
Now, Al, is there any danger in treating or discussing church leaders in the same way that North Korean state media gushes over Kim Jong Un? Is there any danger in that?
I guess the danger comes when you start to acknowledge that Kim Jong Un is essentially the leader of a country that is a cult. So I threw that C word in there. Besides that, we don't want to necessarily equate the church with that. But I don't know. Beyond that, it just kind of looks similar.
It's incredibly similar, especially this week. Now, I'm not comparing them morally or ethically.
No.
Because Kim Jong-un, he starved millions of people. He's killed lots of people. He's a reprehensible, evil person. So I'm just saying that there's a lot of similarities in between the way these two individuals are discussed by their own state-controlled media.
Yeah. Is this the part where I pointed out that Russell M. Nelson has not built homeless shelters, so there's been homeless people freezing to death on the streets of his own state, and demanding people pay tithing instead of groceries, so they go hungry. I shouldn't mention that, should I?
I definitely don't think that you still can equate those two morally in any way, shape, or form.
No. I will say Russell M. Nelson is not openly kidnapping and torturing and murdering people.
Yeah. But back to, I wrote all of those headlines for the church news. It'd just be great. It would be amazing if I could just get a job at church headquarters writing those articles. That would be so lit.
Oh, you'd be great. You got my vote. I'll give you a reference.
Will do. Now, if they won't let me scrawl effulgent sycophantic articles praising the patriarchy, maybe I could just be the guy that pushes the dementia-stricken general authorities in wheelchairs around the underground tunnels.
Well, that's fun, too.
Yeah. Especially if you get them going up a little too fast.
That's right.
Now, but if I can't do either of those, one last job I would love to have would be on the Strengthening Church Members Committee. I know that's shocking, but, Al, I've always wanted to serve the Lord by snooping on my fellow saints.
Oh, you're that kind of neighbor, are you?
Now, that does bring us to our Mormon News Roundup question of the week. And do you have that for us, Al?
Yeah, so the question of the week, how do you feel about this week's 4 church news articles regarding President Nelson's scientific prowess, Scrabble skills, and laudable personal qualities?
Yeah, so if you come on over, you can to Anchor, you can interact with us on that question. And by the way, if you could drop us a like, drop us a subscription, and rate us with 5 stars, we'd be very grateful for that.
Yes,
now,
we
our
would.
next article here, we are on the heels of that devastating shooting of with Michael Haight in Enoch, Utah, about 2 weeks ago. The family has released a statement after the suspected murder-suicide in Enoch. And this statement is really causing quite a bit of controversy because of what it says.
What does it say?
Yeah, so what it says is, we appreciate your sentiments, but I'm sorry, this is about the only way that I can summarize this. This is how somebody tweeted out this summary. They said, "It's a bummer that my grandkids are dead, but don't make this about guns." No, I
Oh
know
my
that sounds
gosh.
insensitive. I know that sounds insensitive, but if
Yeah.
you read the actual statement, it is really, really, it's very, very strange statement.
It's a strange statement because this person obviously cares more about their freedom to bear arms and stuff than they care about having their grandkids alive. Uh,
And that's, they said, don't make this about politics, but
yeah, but then they made it about politics.
and that's what
You
I'm
know?
wondering, because if you actually go, and I found Michael Haight's obituary, if you
Hmm.
go and read his real obituary, the family,
Yeah.
it makes it sound like he was just a great saintly good Mormon.
I'm sure he was up until his wife decided she's leaving him, and then that was just a step too far for him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to make of this. This is one of the most puzzling statements I've
Yeah.
ever read
Well,
because,
that's one of those things that says, we know what people are in their public life, but you really don't know what people are like in their private life until you get in there behind closed doors.
well, that's interesting that you say that, because Lindsay Hansen Park tweeted this out on her tweet, where she was tweeting with one of his family members, one of the survivors,
Yeah.
and he talked about how he would demand that his wife have dinner on the table ready when he got home. No one ate until he took the first bite. If she was preparing dinner and he would call and say that he wanted something else, she had to start over.
Oh my
That she threw all
gosh.
the food on the floor. This is tweeted out by Lindsay Hansen Park,
No,
and that she
no,
can
no
he
wonder she filed for divorce. This poor lady.
yeah,
That's
and
not
he
that's not a loving father or husband.
absolutely not. He supposedly controlled her friendships and what she could or could not do, controlled all the
Hmm.
money.
Yeah.
It's just, this is a far cry. If
Yeah.
what Lindsay Hansen Park has tweeted out is correct, that is a far cry from what we read in
Yeah.
his obituary. But why would his family want to prop him up in an obituary like this? I don't understand why you're saying, okay, don't make this about politics, don't make it about guns, and he was just a really great person and leave us all alone. I,
Yeah, that's weird.
I don't know.
Um, I guess it's they don't want maybe to give them the benefit of the doubt they don't want us to speak evil of the dead, but uh, this guy murdered his whole family. Uh, that bears being mentioned, and all of that, whatever virtues they thought he had, he kind of wiped them all away with murdering his entire family.
The other thing that somebody tweeted out was that they took the family photos and they photoshopped out
Hmm.
Brother Hate, and instead they photoshopped Jesus into his place.
I saw that; it was kind of creepy. Yeah,
I don't know what is going on out there.
people are weird.
You know, this is all I can say, is that there's been two major Mormon related mass killings in the last couple of months. This one and the Colorado shooting.
That's right.
But 50 East North Temple, Salt Lake City, Utah, is very, very silent on gun control and taking any leadership.
Well, I guess they're respecting the wishes to not make it political.
Huh.
I guess.
Yeah. Well, the 14 fundamentals of following a prophet. I thought prophets weren't supposed to be. I thought they
Yeah,
weren't supposed to be popular.
I thought so too. Yeah,
Yeah. Let's move along here. We got a big episodes this
yeah.
week. Now, this was a very interesting tweet that came out on Reddit here. I guess it's a post. And
Hmm.
somebody wrote an API script that checked the online appointments for endowment sessions across every single temple that the church
Wow.
owns. And so it shows the appointments and what and who is using the temples and how much they are used. And what
Hmm.
was very surprising about this, that he also posted the raw data that goes along with this. There's 10,000 pages of raw data that backs up the
Hmm.
claims. And it looks like if you scroll down, and we're going to include this in the show notes, but if you scroll through,
Okay.
there is a great deal of temples that are below 20% capacity. And in fact,
Wow.
there's at least 21 temples that are operating below 10% capacity, and that figure would be even higher if you factor in the temples that were closed for renovation. So maybe as
Hmm.
many as 30 of the temples, there's 170 operating temples,
Yeah.
maybe as many as 30 of them are operating below 10% capacity.
This is shocking that they're throwing that much money at building more and more temples, and for nothing. I mean, this is what is this? This is like buying the Hope Diamond and then putting it in a safe deposit box that you're going to go and look at maybe once a year. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing how little these are used. The Saskatchewan temple, 5%, Haiti temple, 5%,
Hmm.
South Korea, 6%, Finland, 6%, Guam temple, 6%, Samoa temple, 6%. And it
Hmm.
goes on. These temples, according to this, and again, this you have to make your appointment to go to an endowment session now through the
Yeah.
appointment scheduler. He wrote a
Hmm.
script that pulls all the appointments. So you're comparing how many seats are available because
Yeah.
it also lists the number of seats by men and women because different temples are different sizes, how many sessions there are, and then
Hmm.
what the appointments are there or for. And remember, not everybody actually fulfills the appointment that they go to.
True.
So it could be even less.
Yeah. So what the it seems like they're trying to do is say, oh, well, our temple's so busy that you have to make an appointment to go to get a seat in an endowment session. When the reality is that they're so not busy that, well, we got to see if we can condense all these people into the same endowment session, that we're going to run one a day or one a week. Yeah.
Yeah, and now according to this information, it looks like the average temple is open
Hmm.
about 13 days a month. Because even
Yeah.
the big temples, they're closed on Sunday and Monday, and there are also
Hmm.
federal holidays, so they're going to be closed about 10 days. So the big temples are open about
Yeah.
20 days a month, but
Hmm.
the smaller temples are only open on Saturdays, and then maybe one, maybe two nights a week. They'd only
Hmm.
be open about 10 days. So the average temple is open about 13 days a month.
True.
So yeah, Al, is such low temple utilization, is that normal?
Um, uh, Compared to what? I mean, that's I know that the church has really pushed temple attendance in the past, but it doesn't seem like people are really taking advantage of their shall we say, their club membership card, that they're paying 10% of their income for.
Right. So we have 170 operating temples, and only 12 of
Mhm.
them are being used at least 50% of the time.
And
All the rest
I'm
of the 100,
guessing that most of those 12 are in Utah.
actually, if you look at that, the most used temple is Frankfurt, Germany, followed by South
Really?
Carolina, then Laie, Hawaii, then Kansas City, then Raleigh, North Carolina, then
Oh
San Juan, Puerto
wow.
Rico. The Utah temples are not being utilized because there's so gosh darn many of them, Al.
Yeah, that's shocking because I like I said, I would have expected all of them to be in Utah, but like Hawaii, that makes sense. Frankfurt, Germany, being the top one, that's surprising. I,
98% utilization rate.
yeah, I'm shocked.
Well, if I were looking at this graph, I would say, okay, well, Frankfurt, Germany, that looks like Germany needs another temple.
Hmm.
That would be logically speaking, when something is at max capacity, we build another one. If you
Yeah,
look at these Utah temples, they're at an extremely low utilization rate, and yet we're
yeah,
building more. So that's what I'm asking you. If temple utilization is so low, then why do we need so many more temples, especially if they're so close together?
yeah. Especially in Utah, right?
Exactly.
That yeah. I mean, if Utah's not even in the top 10, it seems ridiculous. Seems like Germany could use another temple. IEA could use another temple. Puerto Rico, yeah.
So, like Oker Mountain is at 44%, Draper, Utah is at
Hmm.
45%, Cedar City is at like 57%, and that's the highest. Cedar City,
Yeah,
57%, and that's probably
uh-huh.
because St. George is being renovated.
Yeah, and St. George is also what, like an hour away from Cedar City or something like that.
Yeah, Logan
Yeah.
Temple is at 18%. Okay,
Hmm.
so what Logan is building another temple right nearby at Smithfield, but it's not being utilized in its
Yeah,
capacity.
and nor will it be utilized because I mean, there's also the Brigham City Temple through the canyon from Logan. So I mean, even when they do shut down the Logan for renovation in the next few years, I don't see them like having a lot of use, and especially after the renovations are done, I don't think that there's going to be a lot of use of the Logan or the Cache Valley temples.
Yeah, and Brigham City is at 35%. Now, this is tracking endowment sessions only because there's no way you don't need appointments for initiatories, for baptisms for the dead, or for anything else. So this
Yeah,
is endowments only. But the majority of what happens in a temple, in my opinion, is probably endowments.
yeah,
You know, so it's a real head scratcher, especially if these
hmm,
numbers are accurate, which it seems like they are. And they
yeah,
could, like I said, it could even be less because a lot of people can make an appointment and then not even go to it.
that's right.
You're seeing sessions in the raw data. You're seeing a lot of these
Hmm.
sessions that have 40 capacity, and you'll see one or two people in an entire session.
Oh my,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's pretty interesting. So I just thought that was a very interesting tweet here. Let's keep on going here because we're going to go too long on this. But
Yeah.
here's the next article here. This was put out on Reddit too. This is a very very interesting article here.
Yeah.
And it says, what is the title of the article, Al?
It says, you wake up and realize that you are now the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay, so
A
what do you...
a thought experiment, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
hypothetical.
Yeah.
Because I don't think this is going to happen to either one of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Because in order to become president of the church, you have to have been an apostle for around 40 years.
Yeah.
So we would we're both in our 40s, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's going to be tough, even if we were to be called right now, in order to make sure that we would have to live fundamentally to be at least 90. So it's going to be really, really tough. And no one God will not call a prophet who's more than 50 years old. If you're more than 50 years old, you will never be the prophet.
That's
period.
true.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is an interesting theoretical thought experiment. And I do want to have two quick caveats that go along with this. First of all, if you wake up and you're the president of the church and you try to do something, they can just say, we're not going to listen to you because you haven't been sustained in general conference.
That's true.
Okay, so we're going to say that according to Doctrine and Covenants, section 26, the law of common consent, which once upon a time used to mean something, that you have been sustained in the last general conference. Okay, so that's the first caveat. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do much.
Okay.
And number two, the Doctrine and Covenants, section 107, the law of the common council of the church, that's not going to apply. And the common council of the church, that's what was convened to excommunicate Sidney Rigdon. And also it was convened for Joseph Smith by Sylvester Smith after the Zion's Camp March. He was acquitted, or he was... nothing happened to him. So none of those that's not going to apply because you could be removed instantly with the common council. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now here's the questions. I'm giving these to you on the fly here, Al, and I need your honest answer. First of all, what do you do with $150 billion in Ensign Peak? And maybe that's only $100 billion now because the stock market is down. What are you going to do with it?
What I would like to do with that is see if I can return a lot of it to the members and give reparations to the descendants of people who have been donating to the church for over 100 years. Yeah.
And how much do you keep behind in it?
I'm looking to liquidate, so I don't think I keep anything.
Zero. You're gonna liquidate it down to zero. So there's going to be no rainy day. So the church, if there was a problem, the church could be insolvent. You're not even going to keep $5 billion, which is 1 year's of expenses. You're going to completely melt it. Okay, got it. Now, what do you do with the $100 billion in real estate portfolio? You have 400 mission homes, 15,000 chapels, 300 temples. You have the ranches, the commercial real estate, hotels, hospitality, hunting preserves, 4 BYU campuses, Welfare Square, $1.5 billion City Creek Mall. You have the Polynesian Cultural Center. You have the $260 million industrial park in Kent, Washington, and the $600 million industrial campus coming to Phoenix, Arizona, etc. What are you going to do with that real estate portfolio?
Okay, so everything that's not potentially used for the benefit of the people, turn the temples into temples and chapels into homeless shelters and women's sanctuaries. So other things like hunting preserves, the college campuses, sell them, get rid of all the commercial real estate, all the hospitality, all the hotels, everything that can't be used for charitable purposes, get rid of them.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, we don't. What do you do about the pending sex abuse lawsuits, including the massive Boy Scout class action?
We issue an apology and we take care of each and every one of them. We sell all of the Boy Scout properties that we have owned and all of the massive, because there's a lot of real estate out there that the church is holding on to. And I think that just selling off the Boy Scout camps and the young women's camps and the church-owned camps, just selling that off would be enough to take care of paying the penalties to these victims and also to provide them with counseling and therapy to help them through it.
Very well. What do you do regarding the role of women in the church?
I'd make them completely equal with priesthood members by doing away with the priesthood and disbanding church, getting rid of their weekly meetings.
Okay, what do you do to address LGBTQ Latter-day Saint issues?
Issue a very formal apology, and I think that there should be some sort of a statue erected or some sort of memorial erected to all the victims of the LDS Church who have committed suicide in the LGBTQ community. or even those that were kicked out.
Do you change anything at the BYUs? If so, how?
Oh, yeah. Get rid of the colleges. They're completely useless.
Got it. Now, how do you change CES? There's 9,000 seminary and institutes. There's 15 church-owned schools. There's 50,000 employees and 700,000 students. What are you going to do with CES?
Let those employees go and work in the public sector or other private charter school sector. Get rid of CES. Completely disband it.
Okay. Now, what any doctrines that you want to change that come to mind?
Yeah, get rid of all of them.
Okay. What about policies?
Yep. I'm looking to just completely scorch the earth here. So
okay.
I'm getting rid of all of it.
Do you keep anything?
No. Well, here's one thing I might do is keep, not necessarily keep in ownership of the church. Well, okay. So let's say that we've turned all of the chapels that the church owns into like homeless shelters. And I would turn them into community centers as well. How about this? We'll turn the tabernacles into community centers. Places where the community can come and gather once a week or once a month, and where they can do different activities, and they can just meet together and mingle, and have some communication and some socialization.
Okay, what do you do about the word Mormon?
No, certainly don't ban it. I mean, that's kind of it's a word that it's there. I think release any ban on it that's been put on.
Okay, now your first meeting, you're meeting with Dallin H. Oaks. What do you do in your first meeting because you're the prophet now?
Press charges? I don't know.
How are you going to do that? That makes no sense.
That's a good question.
That makes no sense, but we got to keep going. Now, This is the most important. Now,
this is just a thought experiment.
Okay, thought experiment. Press charges. That makes no sense. Now, finally, and most importantly, how do you help the BYU football program regain greatness?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think you're gonna have to get new leadership, so you're gonna need new coaches, new quarterbacks. You're gonna need a stronger team. Yeah.
You're gonna bring Ken Numatalo
on? Not necessarily.
Okay.
He's welcome to interview.
Okay. Very well. Okay, that's an interesting thought experiment, which I hadn't really considered.
Uh-huh.
Now that does bring us to our Mormon News Roundup poll of the week, which is available only on Anchor. And do you have our question for the poll of the week, Al?
Yeah, the question for this week, the question for the poll is, what would be your top priority if you woke up and realized that you are now the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
Okay, is it number one?
Number one, call Brad Wilcox into a mission presidency in Siberia or Easter Island or Antarctica.
That could be some people's first order of business. You know that?
It could be, yeah.
Or what about number two?
Number two, bring back the Miss Indian BYU pageant.
Yeah, they ran that until 2006, Al?
Yes, I do know. That's something.
Yeah. You know why they got rid of it?
I don't know. Why did they get rid of it?
Well, it's because, in order to enter the pageant, you had to have your DNA tested. But by 2006, the Lamanites and the DNA.
Yeah, that's right. So everybody was coming off with like Mongolian ancestry.
Yeah, that's why they had to fold it up there.
Yeah,
that's
it
unfortunate.
wasn't Hebrew. Yeah.
Yeah. How about number three?
Okay, number three is to dust off Oliver Cowdery's holy dowsing rod out of the restricted First Presidency vault to see how it works.
Man, that would be sweet.
Especially with the shortage of water in Utah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Or how about number four?
Number four, personally author an inspirational 36-page Gospel Topics essay on Diet Coke consumption.
Ooh.
Oh, I like that.
That would be nice. Sign that yourself, just end the controversy.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just end the controversy. Or is your top priority number five?
To announce a lunar temple to finally fulfill that famous prophecy recorded by Oliver B. Huntington in his journal.
Now, what was that? Do you remember that?
That there will be temples on the moon.
Right, exactly. I think it was a missionary call. I think it was a patriarchal blessing. See, I think it was Joseph Smith. I have to go back and look this up. It was Joseph Smith giving a patriarchal blessing where he promised whoever was receiving it that they would preach to the inhabitants on the moon who were 6 feet tall and had the appearance of Quakers.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so those Quakers are going to need a lunar temple.
Of course they will.
Yeah, absolutely. Or is your top priority number 6?
To rename the Book of Mormon to the Book of Moroni's Dad.
Yeah.
I like that.
That won't be so that way it won't be a victory for Satan anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, then everybody can read it. Okay, makes sense.
Moroni's not a victory for Satan.
No, absolutely
His dad
not.
is.
That is correct. That's correct. Okay, or is it number 7?
To text the Mormon News Roundup crew on your Jitterbug flip phone for guidance and support.
That, if you wake up
I could
and
see
you
that
realize
happening.
well, if you wake up and you realize you're president of the church, we're here for you, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and I think most of those general authorities, I don't see them using an iPhone. I do see them using that Jitterbug flip phone.
Yes, for sure.
Now, okay, what would be your top priority out of this 7 selections? What would be your top priority according to this 7?
Oh man, I really like the dowsing rod, but I think I'm going to go with rename the Book of Mormon to the Book of Moroni's Dad. Let's just keep going with that.
Very good. Okay, that's our poll of the week.
Yeah.
If you come on over to Anchor, you can interact with us there. By the way, we also have some bonus content on Patreon. If you like what you hear and you want to support this podcast, feel free to. You can support us on Anchor by giving us a donation, or you can come on over to Patreon, and we have a couple of levels of tier subscriptions. And we're getting ready to wrap this up here, Al. We only have one last article left here. But the church has lost a lot of money lately, hasn't it?
It has been leaking like a sieve. Yep.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's losing billions over the last 3 straight quarters in a row. Ensign Peak Advisor stock portfolio is now valued at only $40 billion, well ahead of its pandemic low, but behind its $52 billion peak.
True.
Yeah. The widow's mite is really taking a beating, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll say it is. Yeah.
Is it time to put Ensign Peak on the prayer roll?
It might be. I think that then members should probably do it. It can't hurt, right?
You can put it on the prayer. You can do that online now, by the way.
Oh, good. We should do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I just a real quick thought experiment, by the way. What happens if you put the word Mormon on the prayer roll?
Oh, I wonder if those little white shaving kits that they keep the names in will just like incinerate. They'll just burst into flames on the altar.
Hey, to our listeners out there, please, this is not a joke. Please don't do that. We don't want to see what happens. Anything could happen.
That's right. We don't know. We
don't know. Let's not find out.
We don't need a victory for Satan in the temple.
No, we don't. So, let's just a real quick caveat on this article is that the Salt Lake Tribune article and the church is only reporting on the domestic disclosures of Ensign Peak. You'll notice in all of the stocks that it's talking about, every single one of those is in the Dow Jones. But the Washington Post and David Nielsen, the whistleblower, they estimate Ensign Peak at $100 billion because there's many other parts of Ensign Peak which the church does not disclose, right?
True. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me just ask you this question. Does the Lord bless the companies his church holds stock in? Or does he send the rain on the just and the unjust?
Well, from what we've seen, he does not bless the companies his church holds stock in. He's sending rain on everybody.
Wow, that is surprising, Yeah. I would just expect that whatever the church, wouldn't the Lord want his only church to have as much money as possible, and therefore he would bless those companies? Wouldn't he inspire the heads of Ensign Peak to invest stocks in the companies that would do best?
Well, according to the prosperity doctrine, you would.
That's the problem, though, is that the Dow Jones is down over the last 3 quarters. The Dow Jones is down 21%, but Ensign Peak, it's down 23% in the same stretch. So if you were to just throw darts at the wall of the Dow Jones and pick those stocks and buy them, you'd get down 21%, but Ensign Peak is down 23%.
Yeah. So this is a little bit bizarre because now we got to ask ourselves, what has the church done in the last couple of years to lose the favor of the Lord?
It's a great mystery to me. That's for sure. Yeah, but let me get this straight out and tell me if my thinking is off on this. For every $1 in tithing that I give to the church, they're losing 23 cents of it.
That's worse than taxes.
Or am I being myopic, or is that basically what we're seeing?
That's what we're seeing. And in fact, we'd probably do better if we had the church paying taxes. If we had all churches paying taxes, that would be a huge influx of money into the market.
Well, it'd be better if instead of whatever we're invested in now, if you literally just threw darts at the wall and picked those stocks and bought them, you'd be doing better than what we're doing now. Yeah.
So, the spirit of prophecy is not in Ensign Peak.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, so the three biggest stock holdings in Ensign Peak are Apple, Microsoft, Amazon. Those are over $1 billion each.
Yeah.
And Ensign Peak, it will not invest into anything that the church doesn't believe in, including tobacco companies and not even diet like a Coca-Cola or Pepsi.
Oh, did they get rid of those?
No, they've never invested in those
because they didn't. Okay.
Yeah, you got to avoid the very appearance of evil.
That's right.
Now, so this is my question, Al. Theoretically, should members pay less tithing when Ensign Peak is tanking, but more when it is doing well? Because you're giving money now to the church, and it's losing that money. Shouldn't you just say that tithing, give that back tithing and more when Ensign Peak is doing well?
I think this is a little callback to our discussion earlier about what would you do if you woke up as the president of the church. So I don't know. That I think that would be fair.
Well, it would be smart. The smartest thing to do from a fiscal perspective is to buy more when you're doing well, and then buy less when you're not doing well.
Exactly.
Okay, so I thought the church was supposed to be smart with this money, but if everybody just pays the same amount, I don't think that's the smartest thing. And let me just ask you this last couple of questions here. If Ensign Peak is consistently outperforming the Dow Jones, is that an argument for a divine mandate? Likewise, if Ensign Peak is underperforming the Dow, is that an argument for the lack of a divine mandate?
Like I said, I think that's it. When it comes to the prosperity doctrine, that's kind of what it's saying. Is that either it's led by a divine inspiration or it's not, and it doesn't seem like it is.
Have we ruminated properly on the Great and Spacious Beehive here, Al?
I think so. This has been a very exciting episode this week, so thank you all for joining us.
Now, we have some huge guests and shows coming up. First of all, next week, we have Evan from the Book of Evan on next week. We have Chino Blanco, the moderator of Our Mormon and Our Ex-Mormon Reddits. He's going to be on January 29th. We have Landon Brophy from the Good Book Club on February 5th. And we have the Alternative Mormon on February 12th. And the Midnight Mormons, all three of them have confirmed, Al, February 19th. That is going to be a day that will live in infamy.
Yes, it will, for sure. We're looking forward to it. All right. Does that wrap us up for this week?
Yes, sir.
All right. We want to give a shout out to Weird Alma for this episode's music. And thank you all so much again for ruminating with us on the Great and Spacious Beehive. And remember, no unhallowed hand can stop this podcast from progressing.
When it comes to nicknames of the church, such as LDS Church, the Mormon Church, to remove the Lord's name from the Lord's church is a major victory for Satan.
Satan.
Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a being with no moral constraints. My number one goal is to hurt the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.